For far too long, Africa has lived through a history of slavery, theft, foreign rule, and the darkest place in human history that the world brought to her doorstep. 400 years later, Africa's scars have birthed a dynamic, onward, and rising people. Join the Inspire E-Conference 2021 as great minds edify on the positioning of the new rising star. Starting on the 9th to the 14th of August. Africa, get ready.
Welcome back to day 2 of the conference. I'm your host, Emmanuel Osanga from Johannesburg. If you missed yesterday, you missed a great time yesterday. We had a very good opening yesterday. Welcome you from all over the world, from wherever you're joining us. I see quite a number of people still joining us, but welcome and good to see you. Really, this is a great movement in Africa, for Africa. And we are glad to have you, Professor. I see you're ready for us, and we are also ready for you today. Just in terms of some logistics and quick announcements, one is if you missed yesterday, all the recordings are available on all our social media platforms, YouTube, Inspire Synergy. You can get the recordings there. There are those who said it was quite heavy yesterday, and they said you needed to chew on whatever was presented yesterday. It's available for you to access. You can access it anytime on demand across all our channels. So do reach out if you're joining us for the first time. Please do reach out to those channels and access the different recordings that we have there. In terms of the day, I just want to also say that yesterday we had some social networking session after the conference. It was a great opportunity. We met some business leaders who shared their businesses. Do not miss out on that. We'll tell you about that later in the program, how you can actually join that. Post the conference, we do host a virtual networking session, which was very useful. Do not miss that out. Never know that could just be your opportunity. In terms of what we have for you today, I'm really excited about what we have today. It's going to be great. I will hear from a number of our speakers, and we'll introduce them. Our moderators will introduce them to you just now, but it's going to be exciting. It's talking to skills, really harnessing the skills that we have in our young population. So we're looking forward to having a great day today. If you're joining us from all over the world, do indicate, use the chat to tell us where you're joining us from, put your name. But I think also very important is if you can just share what you learned. Those who came yesterday, for those who are coming for the first time, share what you learned yesterday with the audience. Let them know what you took out from yesterday. One of the takeaways for me yesterday was, can your product and services, if it was a person, can it go to heaven? That will remain with me for a very long time. And every service or delivery of products that we create, I will be asking myself that question all the time to be kind of my checkpoint. But welcome. This is Inspire Conference. You're in the right place. And we have a very strong lineup for you today.
To continue typing in the chat if you haven't done that yet, so that everyone can know where everyone else is. It will be very good to know. The second activity that I want us to do is to type, for those of us who were on the chat yesterday on the call, I know we had some very key takeaways. And one of the very good things about conferences like this is that there's always going to be one key thing that you go away with at the end of every session. And so what I'd like you to do is, in one sentence, maybe even less than a sentence, to type the one thing that stood out from you from the session yesterday. Mine was, Africa has never needed the world, but the world has always needed Africa. That blew me away and made me realize that there's a lot of things that we can do as a continent and that we don't need anybody else. We can do things on our own. that they actually need us more than we need them, and that was a key thing. What about you? What are the things that stood out from you? That one key thing that was a big deal. If you don't mind sharing very briefly, what the key thing was that stood out for you from the session yesterday before we introduce our first keynote speaker today. So please do share. Muteti, you're saying, can your product or service go to heaven if you're a person? Yes, that was definitely a very big one. Let's stop blame shifting our past. Debbie, yes, that was also good. Elijah, that was a powerful one. What pursues you determines how fast you run. And that's actually quite funny while true at the same time. Christine, you're saying Africa is the island of opportunities in a sea of challenges. Absolutely. And Betty, that's another good one from you. The Good Samaritan had good intentions, but he had no money. And that was also quite a very, very important one. Same thing that Finney is saying here about the Good Samaritan. And as you can see, for different people, different things stand out. And all of us are going to take the things that we're learning and go and take them and use them as we try and make sure we take Africa to where it needs to go. Now, of course, as you might know, our theme for this year is Africa, get ready. And I guess the question for you is, are you ready? So the last exercise for you is, if you are ready, to type, I am ready. Are you ready? Can you please tell us if you're ready or not, so we can know how many people are on the bandwagon, right? Yeah, I'm ready, I'm ready. I would like to see the flag being shadowed with, I am ready, very ready, I am ready. Alan, I see you. Ivan, I see you, I am ready. I do hope that we are ready because we have quite a lot of impartation coming our way this week all through Saturday. And so I hope you're not just typing this because I've asked you to, but because you actually are ready, because you are going to need to be ready. Some very exciting things happening. Right, without wasting too much time, let's get into our first session today. The first person who is going to be coming on to Inspire Conference this evening is a person who I absolutely love listening to. It's an absolute pleasure seeing him. And every time he speaks, it's like the oracles of heaven are just coming through a man here on earth. And I want to introduce Professor Anand Pilai, who has got more than 35 years of experience in the corporate world. He's handled the most interesting challenges and assignments in general management. He's been a head of operations as a general manager to CEO to CLO for Fortune 500 countries. He's worked in India, in the US, in Singapore, in Canada. He's what you would properly call a global manager. At the moment, Mr. Pilai is a managing director of Leadership Matters, which is a company that focuses on building an intrapreneurial culture in organizations. And currently, Anand has been retained as a chief transformational officer at a 15 billion, and I hope I can repeat that for your benefit, a 15 billion conglomerate for business and HR transformation. He's also a leadership coach. He's an organization transformational guru. His focus is mostly on making sure that clients can lift their performance and their skills and their behaviors, which speaks a lot into what he's going to be talking about today as we try to apply the world's best managerial practices, thinking like design thinking, boundary management, things that a few years ago maybe were not a big deal, but now have become more and more important. His recent corporate roles have been as Senior Executive Vice President, HR, and Chief Learning Officer at Reliance Industries. That's one of the biggest companies in the world. And before that, he was a Senior Vice President and HR Global Head at Talent Transformation at HCL Technologies Limited as well. And so without wasting too much time, his introduction speaks more than volumes that are necessary. He's going to be coming to talk about harnessing the emerging skills in Africa, but also doing it in a practical way by sharing particular examples and case studies from where he has been. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and clap as we welcome Anand Pilai to Inspire Conference 2021. You're welcome, Anand. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben, for this kind words. And I'm going to now share my screen. Let me see if I get that organized. There we are. Okay, so we have my screen here, which is harnessing emerging skills. And as Ben and others mentioned, I will be talking about case studies from India, how we did this as we go forward. Now, I want to make it very clear that I will not be talking about actually the emerging skills, but I will be talking about how we can harness the emerging skills. Having said that, I want to also put up the top 10 skills of 2025 as postulated by World Economic Forum. Now, if you look at it on the legend on the left-hand bottom corner, or my left-hand bottom corner, you will find 4 categories of skills: problem solving, self-management, working with people, technology use, and development. So if you see, the blue part of it is all into problem solving. So what are the skills that Africa would need? Is analytical thinking and innovation in the area of problem solving, complex problem solving, critical thinking and analysis, creativity, originality, and initiative, and of course, reasoning, problem solving, and ideation. Just this bucket of skills could go into days together. The second category of skills are what we would call self-management. And in self-management, you need to have active learning and learning strategies, and of course, resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. And Africa may not be there yet in, let us say, active learning or learning strategies, but you can get there. The third category of skills are working with people, and here it is largely leadership and the social influence. And how can you lead from the front, and how can you get work done with people who are not directly reporting to you? The problem in today's world is that we have to get a lot of our work done from people who are not part of our organization, who may not even be part of our geography, who may not even be part of our legal entity. But we need to exercise social influence and get things done, and that is working with people. And the fourth category, and possibly Africa will have to spend a lot of years in catching up with this, is technology use and development. And the 2 specific skills are technology monitoring, technology control, technology design, and programming. While Africa may have missed or may have not gone through the first generation and the second generation, it is quite possible for you to leapfrog into the latest technology and development, and therefore this is possible. So the 4 categories of skills: problem solving, self-management, working with people, and technology and development is easily masterable. I don't want to get into, as I mentioned, the emerging skills, but what I want to talk about is how you can harness them. This particular slide that I'm now talking about is available on Google. All that you have to do is put top 10 skills 2025 World Economic Forum, and the entire report is available for you. My job is to focus on harnessing these emerging skills, and the 3 platforms that I would like to talk of is the learning organization, creating an employee-centric organization, and building on the 4 strands of an employee-centric organization. So let me introduce 2 definitions of the learning organization. The learning organization, as put by Peter Senge in his book, The Fifth Discipline, and here he is focusing on the importance or the dependence on the learner in the learning organization. And my desire is that the whole of Africa imbibe this culture, the learning organization. And what is the learning organization? The learning organization, as put by Peter Senge, and more of it you can get from the book, The Learning Organization, where he calls it the 5th discipline. It's basically a group of people working together to collectively enhance their capacities to create results that they really care about. Now, most of you would have heard a proverb or an adage which says you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. My approach is, why waste time taking the horse to the water? If you really want the horse to drink the water, all that you will have to do is pull the tongue of the horse and rub salt on it, and the horse will immediately run towards water. The job of leaders in Africa is not to force people to drink water or not to force people to learn. The job or the mandate or the task or the challenge that is there for leaders in Africa is to ensure that they create a learning environment where people work together to collectively enhance their capacities to create results that they really care about. Now, one of the beautiful things about Africa, I shared this in my small introduction, is the fact that Africa shares a age demography very similar to that of India. And what is that? Over 65% of the population is under the age of 35. That is true of India. That is true of large portion of Africa. Why is this important? This is important because Africa is a young nation and we need people. There are various wars that are being fought. The biggest war that is being fought in today's world is the war for talent. Now, if you look at all the emerged or developed or emerging economies, take China, for example, take America, for example, take Japan, for example, take Europe, for example, all these countries have got an aging population. Sure, they are very high on their GDP. They're possibly number 1 to number 5, and Africa may be way below even 25 in terms of the world's GDP. But don't worry, you have the talent. And once you have the talent and once you have the people, the people will be able to take the country, the continent forward. Now, the definition of a learning organization is not only central to the learner, it is also central to the organization. It takes two hands to clap. It takes two to tango. Yes, the learner is primarily important for him or her to harness the emerging skills, but the organization, and this organization could be an institution, could be a government entity, could be a church, could be a corporate entity, could be an NGO. All of them in Africa should constantly strive to facilitate their employees with all the knowledge and learning tools to reap huge business profits to ensure that they continue surviving as a winner in competitive times. So there is a focus on the learner and there is a focus on the organization. So if you look at the employee-centric organization, it centers around the employee, who is the core of the company. And that employee, once he or she is treated or respected or focused as one who would create value for customers, you then together will be able to focus on reaping business results centered around the employee. Now, the employee-centric organization that you need to create in order to get what we would call an organization that harnesses the emerging skills is one that is an eco or an employee-centric organization. There are 4 pillars of this employee-centric organization. What are those 4 pillars? The first pillar is career planning. We need to really put the focus, put the center on the employee, on his or her career. The second one is succession planning. That is, build successors or build the leadership bench in the organization. A large number of people confuse career planning and succession planning, and many of them use it interchangeably. They think each is synonymous with the other. I will spend a few minutes to explain the difference so that you get that clarity, in order that you will be in a position to really harness the skills. But those are the top two building blocks. The underlying building blocks of harnessing skills is two other pillars. One is career customization. And I can tell you one thing, of all the continents, or for that matter, of all the countries in the world, the one country that can imbibe or adopt or implement career customization almost readily is Africa. And the main reason for that is you don't have any legacy into the big structures which are for many corporates carved in stone. Because Africa is a young economy, young population, the flexibility, the mobility is far higher, and therefore you can implement that. I will talk about that. And of course, finally, we will also talk about how you can reskill yourself. There are a lot of people who are raising their hands. If it is a question, there will be time for us to answer those questions. So I want to deep dive into my presentation as I go forward. Please, I request Ben or whoever is moderating to keep a track of the questions, so that at the last 10 minutes or 15 minutes, we can spend on those question and answer. I did talk about the fact that many people confuse career planning with succession planning. In one slide, let me give you the difference between career planning in the red and succession planning in the green. Career planning is to my left, to your right possibly, and succession planning is in the green. So what is the main difference? The main difference is what or who is there in the center of the process. In the case of career planning, the individual or the employee is at the center. He or she has got career plan 1, career plan 2, career plan 3, career plan 4. So when I began my career way back in 1981 end or 1982, I at that point in time wanted to be, or I was given a responsibility of being a Unix systems administrator. I pretty soon found out that the career growth in programming, at least the company that I worked for, was not much. Bulk of the people who are on a fast track career was all into sales and marketing. And I still remember one particular year, and that was the year 1986. And we in our company had got large mainframe orders, and the managing director of the company gave a congratulatory note, and that was put on the notice board. And on that notice board, I had worked along with all the marketing people in the pre-sales team. I was a technical person doing what is known as RTS, requirement definition analysis, justification, and so on. But when the final recognition, the final award came, my name wasn't there. It was only the sales and marketing people. And I went there and complained. I said, listen, I also did some work. In fact, I did a lot of work. But the company, they said, no, the final credit, the final award goes to the marketing person. So that particular year, the performance appraisal in 1986, I said, 1986 March, I said, listen, there was one option. Do you want to discuss something? I said, yes, I want to discuss about my career. And I moved into sales and marketing. Main reason for that was I had that as a career plan. And once I moved into sales and marketing, I got into product development, I got into program management, I got into account management. Those were all the career plans that was there. I finally moved on into quality, I moved on into training. Those are all the career plans. So a particular individual may have a variety of career plans. He or she may go in a particular track, may go in one or two tracks, and ultimately culminate in any one of them. In fact, when I was selected for my first job with DCM as a management trainee, I had to give in a 5-page essay on what I plan to be or what I intend to be 5 years from now. And the discussion was all around what I'm doing to get there. So a particular individual, we in Africa, we will all have our own career plans. I want to become an agriculturalist. I want to become an economist. I want to become a technologist. I want to become a lawyer. I want to become a doctor, whatever. You have a variety of career plans. So the career plans are around the individual, but the individual is in the center. That is the key difference in career planning. Exactly the opposite is the case of succession planning. In succession planning, for an organization, for a church, for an institution, for an NGO, or for a country, the position that needs to be filled is in the center. And contrary to popular belief, that position need not be only the CEO or the CFO or the chief operating officer or the chief technology officer. The position is that of any strategic role. It could be that of a project manager. It could be that of a quality manager. It could be that of a HR manager. It could be that of a technology manager. It could be that of a geography manager. For that particular position, you have got a variety of people who could fill in that particular position. Individual 1, individual 2, individual 3, individual 4. Now, depending on who in your assessment is ready, who has harnessed the skills themselves, they will be possibly selected, and we will see what is that process for succession planning. Let me take you into the deep dive of career planning. What is career planning? And people in Africa, if you have to harness your skills, you will have to build this foundation very clear. You must be very, very focused on what are the career plans that you are having. Only then can you accordingly appropriate or harness the relevant skills, which I will come to in the or towards the end of my presentation, pillar number 4. So career planning is basically a lifelong process which includes choosing an occupation, getting a job, growing in your job, and possibly changing your careers and eventually retiring. And here I want to mention one thing very clear. You need to choose an occupation and get a job. Once you get a job, you need to grow in your job. And all of us want to grow in our job. In the process of growing in our job, we possibly will end up changing careers. I gave you my own example. I started way back in 1982 as a Unix systems administrator. I did not last in that for more than 4 years. By 1986, I wanted to change my career, but I was in the same group, the Tatas. I had the same job or a similar job, but I changed my career. Once you change your career, and of course, from there, I got into sales and marketing, I got into account management, I got into program management. My careers changed, but I was within the umbrella organization of the Tatas for 10 long years. And then for 6 long years, I was with 2 American companies, and then close to 14 years in HCL Technologies. And in HCL Technologies, I had a geography role in Canada. I came back to India with a geographic role, and then I moved into people development. I moved into quality. I moved into business transformation, and eventually retiring. So we need to understand that career planning does not mean company planning. Career planning is basically choosing a particular occupation, get a job. Once you get your job, you definitely should grow in your job, and you grow in your job, and the faster you harness your skills, the faster you grow. But you don't have to harness the entire skills. You need to harness those skills that are in line with your career aspirations. Sometimes what happens is your career aspiration may change, as it was in my case. I moved away from a technical. I lasted not more than 4 years. I moved into sales, and there I succeed. I was there for about 18 years. But for some reason or whatever, I decided to change that career. I got into people development. And from people development, I got into business transformation. So you possibly will change your career in line with your career aspiration. You need to harness your skills and then see how you can take that forward. So that's the first building block of an employee-centric organization. Having done that, Then you look at the organization that you're working for, which is focusing on succession planning. Now, what is succession planning? Succession planning for an organization, for a church, for an institution, for a government, or for an NGO, basically is that process which enables them to identify the talented employees within the organization, so that the organization or the church or the NGO or the governmental department provides the training, provides the education to develop them for future and higher responsibilities and broader level responsibilities. By God's grace, I have had the pleasure and privilege of working for what we call Fortune 500 companies. And in these Fortune 500 companies, the companies provide a very good learning environment. But that learning environment is only secondary. The primary the primary enabler in harnessing skills is the desire of the employee. If an employee has got a keen desire, then obviously the environment or the platform provided by the organization is leveraged and taken forward. Many people say, I don't believe in luck. Well, some people say, I believe in luck. My definition of luck is when opportunity meets preparedness. So you come across opportunities, but if you're not prepared, if you're not harnessed your skills in line with your career aspirations, whatever be the succession planning done by the organization, it does not cut ice. Now, obviously, succession planning will not be done for 100% of the organization. The general rule is they identify high potential. And percentage-wise, it is anywhere between 5 to 15%, depending on which organization you're working for. The organization identifies these high potentials. Now, once you've identified those high potentials, the job or the duty or the responsibility of the organization is to develop these high potentials to effectively take over the current leadership whenever their time comes to exit their positions. And this is what is known as position-centric position-centric succession planning. For the job of a finance head, for the position of a geography head, for the position of a quality head, for the position of a technology head, for the position of a church head, for the position of a department head. And this type of leadership development usually requires extensive transfer of an individual between the department. So you may want to say, okay, I want a person to succeed in the finance role, but that finance person should know the products. So he or she may have to get transferred into a particular product department. That finance person also must know technology. So they may get transferred to a technology department. Let us say in an organization, they may get exposed to a particular geography. So they may be transferred to that. So it requires what we would call a 2 by 2 by 2. And what is a 2 by 2 by 2? You need to transfer the person in a minimum of 2 geographies. If anybody in Africa is aspiring for a global role and he or she has never visited America, it is very unlikely that he or she will become a global manager. At best, they will become only East Africa manager or a South Africa manager or a West Africa manager or a Central Africa manager. You need to get exposed into at least 2 of the emerging economies. You need to know what is happening in America. You need to know what is happening in Australia. You need to know what is happening in Europe. You cannot be a frog in the well. So you must be exposed to at least 2 geographies. And by God's grace, I've had the pleasure and privilege of being exposed to many of these geographies. But the second 2 by 2 is you must be exposed into at least 2 of the company's product or service lines, whatever the company is dealing with. If you're dealing with a variety of products and you want to become a leader to take on senior roles, you must be exposed into all those products or service lines, at least 2 of them. And the third transfer between departments that you will have to get into is exposed into the variety or the various functions within an organization. There are at least 5 critical functions in an organization: finance, HR, marketing, technology, quality, and so on. So if you want to grow into a senior role, to succeed in a senior role, you definitely need to harness your functional skills in the specific function that you are in. For example, I was for about 18 years in sales and marketing. And by God's grace, I kind of learned that. And by chance and by desire, I got into HR. Once I got into HR, I had to reskill myself. I had to retrain myself and harness those skills. And then from there, got into business transformation. And in between, I got into quality and so on. So you need to harness the job-specific skills, you need to harness the geography-specific skills, the technology-specific skills, and the practice-specific skills. So for an organization to implement or to deploy a succession management process, there are 5 components. What are those 5 components? I have listed all the 5 components here. First thing is, they must have a very transparent succession management process. And this particular succession management process must be, as far as possible, not a secret document, but a document that is there on the church website, say, if it is a church, on the website of or the intranet of the government organization, or the intranet of the corporate entity. It must be something that is available for a large number of people to see. Only then will you be considered a transparent organization, particularly when people are aspiring, they know what positions are being ventilated. After that, we need to also identify the talent pool, and having identified the talent pool, we will go on into engaging the leaders, then managing or monitoring the success of the succession planning process, and ultimately recommending people for the key positions. So look at the first component. The succession planning should be aligned with the business strategy. A large number of organizations that I have come across in the early stages of my career, about 35 years ago, they were all keeping the succession planning process centered around individuals. Oh, so-and-so is a great person. He or she can succeed. Well, that is a wrong approach. The right approach towards succession planning, as I have listed here, is succession planning should integrate the corporate process to make sure that there is a link between the company's business strategy and that particular employee's long-term goals as well as objectives. That is something that has to be transparent. For that particular end in mind, work backward from the organization so that you provide a pool of identified talent. And some people may be in finance, some people may be in HR, some people may be in technology, some people may be in business, in sales and marketing, and so on, and they need to harness that specific skills. Once they have done that, then you engage them using the best practices, giving them higher responsibilities, higher developmental opportunities, coaching and mentoring, putting them into extra training, and so on, and taking them a few notches above. And you also need to assess the effectiveness of that program, because not everybody who's put into the succession management process will be able to succeed. Some of them may filter out, some of them may wash out, and may not be able to make it. So you need to constantly monitor if people are harnessing the right skills. If they are not harnessing the right skills, or if they are going slow, or if they're going too fast ahead of the company's business objectives, you need to have a regular monitoring and assessing mechanism, which in turn increases the level of coaching and mentoring, or changes the track that they are in. Finally, you get into recommending, okay, out of the so-and-so people, these are the people who are possibly recommended. And here you will come out with a particular technology, depending on which organization you are. You may have a 9-box grid, which enables you to select the people. You may have a particular behavioral event interview, or whatever that you have to recommend the people for success. So those are the 5 integral components of succession planning. Let me get you into the third component of your entire employee-centric organization, which is career customization. When you look at career customization, and Africa, as I told you, is possibly right at the beginning to deploy what Deloitte has called as MCC. What is MCC? Mass Career Customization. How do you determine the career growth or the career track of a particular individual? You determine the career growth or the career track of a particular individual, or you assess the career growth or career track of a particular individual as per Deloitte on 4 parameters. And what are those 4 parameters? I've listed that in my slide here. The 4 parameters are the pace of work. You could have a very decelerated pace of work or a very accelerated pace of work, and your career can grow depending on this parameter, whether you are having a decelerated pace of work or a very accelerated pace of work. The second parameter that determines your career growth is the workload. You can have a reduced workload or you can have a full workload. And Deloitte calls this the workload parameter. The third parameter that enables one to track or harness their skills is the location or the schedule. You may be having restricted travel, restricted location requirements, or you are not at all restricted. You are saying, listen, post me wherever there is a position. Post me in Timbuktu. I'm locationally mobile. I can travel all over the world, no problem. So that could be something that determines your career. Not all of us may be locationally mobile. Not all of us may have the capacity to take a full load. Not all of us may have the pace of an accelerated pace. Then finally, the fourth parameter is the role that a particular individual plays. Your role could be that of an individual contributor, or your role could be that of a team leader. Now, again, contrary to popular belief, it does not mean that individual contributors are at the bottom of the pyramid and team leaders are at the top of the pyramid. There are a lot of organizations, and I can give you examples like that of IBM. In IBM, there is a role or a position called IBM Fellow. He or she is actually an individual contributor. This person is doing a lot of research. This person is filing a lot of patents, but they're not having any team members directly as part of their organization or as part of their team. And they could well be earning as high as even the CEO or the CXO. So these are the 4 parameters. Let me take you through the career graph of how it grows. Before I go through, let me give you the 6 parameters which enables us to determine why this career graph will become dynamic. And these 6 parameters are very relevant even for Africa. What are those 6 parameters? The first parameter is the fact that there is a shrinking pool of, mark my words, skilled labor. There is not a shrinking pool of labor. There is possibly plenty of labor available in Africa, but skilled people who have harnessed a particular skill, whether it be technology, whether it be finance, whether it be marketing, whether it be whatever, that pool of skilled labor is shrinking because not many people can harness all the skills. But that is a challenge and that is a reality. The second one, and this possibly is true for Africa, many of you will be able to correct me, is the changing family structures. A large number of economies started off with what we call the joint family system. We in India, we had the joint family system. Now we're kind of migrating away into what is a nuclear family system, which is basically a father and mother and 2 children. But there was a time where we all lived with our parents together. So the changing family structures could be a parameter which enables you to decide on the career customization. The third parameter, which is becoming a very important parameter for organizations which are now adopting diversity, is the increasing number of women in the workforce. If you look at some of the announcements that are being made by the Fortune 500 companies, almost all of them are saying we want to increase the number of women in our workforce, not just at the entry level, but even at the leadership level. And that will enable you, even Africa, to really leapfrog into the next level of technology. And this is not just in manual labor. This is in high-end leadership roles as well. And of course, the changing expectations of men, where men are saying, listen, why should I be the only earning member? I want to take a sabbatical. And also, and this is true in Africa too, the evolving expectations of the Gen X and Gen Y and big impact of technology. And COVID has really taught us how we can work in a virtual environment. The bottom line is that the workforce has changed as a result of COVID, but the workplace has not. And this is what will make us to do our career customization. And what we basically are seeing is the fact that business as usual is no longer an option. So what are some of the things that Africa can adopt to ensure that people harness their skills in a much more productive manner? The first thing that we can consider is flexi time. Don't give the regular 9 to 5 job. And COVID has really brought about this in a very interesting manner. Some people can work from morning 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock. Some people can work from 10 to 6 and so on, flexi time. Or you can have reduced work hours or part-time. You can say, listen, wait a minute, I'm having an aged parent to take care of, or I'm having young children to take care of, or I am sick, and therefore I want to have, for this portion of my career, I want to have some reduced work hours, or I want to have part-time. Or sometimes what happens is there are some people who really work like a maniac, and countries like Finland, countries like Europe are experimenting this 4-day compressed work week, where they don't want to work 5 days a week, they want to work 4 days. Africa may want to consider this. Or the other concept which is being introduced is this concept of banking of hours. Banking of hours is very similar to any conventional banking. You've got excess money, you go and bank it. So if I work on a particular day, rather than the required 6 to 8 hours, I work for about 8 to 12 hours. I can bank those hours in a particular account, which I can use for some other day where I'm required to take leave for some practical reasons. That leave will not be really a leave. I can draw from the bank, from my overdraft or from my bank balance. If I have a bank balance of so many hours that I worked extra, I can take that, and that is called banking of hours. The other one is leaves and sabbaticals. So you may decide, listen, not everybody needs to be in a particular job. Some people may want to take sabbatical, and a large number of academic institutions encourage this. The workload is not much, so they encourage them to get into sabbaticals. The yellow one, which is a very important one, which is now being introduced and being experimented in a large number of organizations as they are becoming global, is this concept of job sharing. What is job sharing? Job sharing is there are 3 or 4 people who are having the same job. Now, it's not necessary that all the 3 or 4 people do the same job. It's quite possible that one person does the job of more than one person, or one person shares the job of another. And I'll give you my own example. I'm based in New Delhi, India. My work hours are equivalent to your 4 o'clock in the evening. By the time your 4 o'clock comes, I've already finished my day. But 4 o'clock is, or even 3:30, is not even the end of the day for you. So if I choose to take on that same job for another person in Africa because of the time zone, I can do that, and you can also do the same. So job sharing is sharing the job with people so that while you share the workload, and while you can, at a later point in time, if you can't, then somebody else can fill in, and that can become a career customization. We all know about telecommuting and virtual working. Or the other last one in black is what is known as gradual retirement. In many countries, retirement age is 55, 58, 60, 65, and so on. You don't have to work till 58 and then retire. Gradual retirement is phasing out your retirement or customize your career because you harness your skills differently in different phases. Now, as I'm coming towards the last 10 minutes of my presentation, I want to talk about what is there on the left hand, the corporate ladder, which is what we looked at traditionally. And Africa as a continent can look at what is there on the right. So the traditionally is, you have your consist workers work according to the family structure, you move up the hierarchy, and then you get promoted. Well, that is one way of growing. The other way, which Deloitte calls it the corporate lattice, is basically adjust as the workers' needs change over time. Give people a career life lift. Enable some people to move faster, some people to move slower, some people to change directions. Provide multiple paths upwards, lateral, and make sure that you have an evolving matrix structure. In fact, this kind of an organization is called a holographic organization. Organizations where network reporting is what is given as the order of the day. And since Africa is in the beginning of the high growth career, you can very well adopt the career lattice. Now, let me take you through the career graph of an individual. I'm taking 4 stages of an individual's life. Stage 1 is 1 to 5 years of a career. And let us look at the 4 parameters that we use to measure the track of a person. That is the pace of work, the workload, the location or travel restrictions, and the role that he or she is playing. If you look at the graph here, at the 0 to 5 years of a person's career, the pace is kind of okay, but the person has got all the time in the world, and therefore their workload can be very, very high. They also have no restrictions whatsoever. They have no obligations whatsoever. They possibly are not even married. So they don't have to worry about taking care of a spouse or anything. They can travel as much as they want, and therefore they have what is known as an unrestricted travel. But unfortunately, when it comes to the role, that particular person in 0 to 5 years may be on the beginning of their career, and therefore that is low. Now let us take stage 2. Stage 2 is when the person has possibly got married, he or she has got young children, and suddenly the career graph takes a completely different shape. Earlier, they were in a position to have a faster pace of life, but now they cannot because they've got a young spouse and they've got possibly young children, 3 young children or whatever, and their workload is not as much as they could take on earlier, and they're not in a position to travel 5 days in a week or something, but they have a family and they need to take care of that. And of course, they're still an individual contributor. Then you move to stage 3. Stage 3, you have grown-up children, and by this time, the person is 13 years plus. Possibly they've changed a career within the same company, they've got on to another role, they've started a new career, and they've got the ability to come back to possibly a similar workload, similar pace, and not as much travel restriction. They can travel for 1 2-day trips, and they've grown in their role from an individual contributor to a team leader. Then you come to what I would call myself. I put myself in this category, 25 years plus in the corporate role. This is also what we call the birds have flown off the nest, or the empty nester syndrome. Children are all, overseas or in other locations, and they are possibly even married and taking care of themselves. No travel restrictions. You can take on global assignments. People in Africa, you possibly are in stage 1 or stage 2, but you need to prepare people for stage 3 and stage 4 so that they harness the relevant skills and move up the ladder as they move up the value chain. I don't want to spend too much on this because I want to give time for questions as I come to the last component, and that is reskilling. So you need to reskill yourself in 4 areas. And what are the 4 areas where you need to reskill? Before that, let me ask you the question. And that question is, how do you manage growth innovation and talent engagement in a country or a continent like Africa, and performance when the pressure is to do more with less. The solution is reskill. Ensure that your employees harness the career specific skills, the job specific skills, in order that they perform a variety of tasks to gain the flexibility in work, scheduling, and improved coordination. We need to focus on three big areas while you are harnessing the skills. And what are those three areas? The first one is the blue one, and that is the job role skills linked to the activities, that of a programmer, that of a lawyer, that of a clerk, that of a finance person, that of a project manager, whatever it is. You need to harness the job specific skills. Once you have harnessed the job specific skills, you also need to move up the value chain into that green area where you are, in addition to harnessing your job specific skills, you also get to learn product skills, technology skills. Once you have done that, in accordance to World Economic Forum, you then move into the harnessing of the leadership and business skills. So you need to have both these parameters taken care of in order to ensure that you have got a person who is ready and available to take on global tasks or profession where a person has managed his or her career tasks by harnessing the relevant skills unique to a set of job responsibilities. He or she has got the technology skills, he or she has got the job specific skills, he or she has got the business and leadership skills. The job or the role of the organization is to ensure that you have got the people who have been engaged and they are retaining their current skills, but they are also harnessing, managing, and deploying the right skill at the right places in order for the organization to reap its business benefits. There are two things that you will have to do for you to continue to harness your skills, and that is what I would call the courage zone and the comfort zone. We need to ensure that employees are put in the 60-40 ratio. 60% of their day-to-day job must be in their comfort zone. They must first harness their skills that they are comfortable in. That should be about 60%. But having said that, they also should spend time, about 40% of their time and energy should be spent in the courage zone, that which is difficult, and this is possibly more difficult to harness than the comfort zone, but first they should focus on the comfort zone, that which is a higher duty, that which requires additional mentoring. They should have about 40% of their job harnessing the difficult skills or the courage zone skills. This should be revisited once in every 18 to 36 months. It should not be a static curve or a static circle. Once in every 18 to 36 months, you need to revisit the ratio, because as you revisit the ratio, what happens? It is quite possible that a particular individual has harnessed some of those difficult skills, some of those risky skills, and that has gotten from or moved from the courage zone to the comfort zone. And when you revisit it, that particular person's deployability will increase, and that can increase with the location, that can increase with the function, and that can increase with the particular domain or the skill. So you get to harness your skills in all the three dimensions, in terms of geography skills, your location skills, in terms of your business domain skills, in terms of your function skills, HR, marketing, and so on. Finally, it comes to the big question that we have. And what is that? That is, how long should we learn? Mortimer Adler said, the purpose of learning is to ensure growth. The purpose of learning is growth, and our minds, unlike our bodies, continue to grow as long as we live. Now, as I'm talking to you, I am 61 or 62 on my age. I don't want to stop learning. My body may stop growing, but my mind will not. And that is what Africa should adopt. But the question that is asked of by the CFO is, okay, if you train people, they will become more marketable. So the CFO will ask the question, what if we train our employees and they leave? Well, my challenge is not that. My challenge is, what if you don't train your employees in Africa? What if you don't let your employees harness the skills and they stay back? That will be a bigger problem. With that, I come to the end of my presentation, and I've just about hit my time and open for questions. The moderator can channel the questions to me, and I'll be more than happy to answer. Ben, the floor is yours.
Wow. Wow. I think the only question that there has been for you, Anand, is can we get a copy of the presentation, which I know we're going to make available in case anyone wants that. So, but amazing stuff there. Also, I know for anyone who wants to get a recording of this and go through it again, it's not the sort of thing that you can just digest in 40 minutes. You probably need to go and watch this about 20 times over. So you can go ahead and do that. Just go to look for Inspire Synergy on YouTube, on Facebook as well, and you'll be able to find links to the recording today. And you can not only go through it, but share it with other people. And I can see that from the chat, there's a lot of excitement, rightfully so, because this is the sort of stuff that we want to be talking about. If you do have any questions that need to be answered now, though, you can go to, if you go to your chat section, there's a Q&A section. And if you go to that, you can be able to ask your question, and then we'll put those to Anand right now and go through a couple of them before we go on to the next session. And here's one from Isaac Aligo, and I'm going to, I think, go through all of them, and then you can respond to them at once, and then the rest of them will give you a chance to be able to respond to them live as we go into the next session. Isaac asks, he says, your explanation on the labor advantage Africa has given talks about the demographic transition. He, however, says that global jobs are distributed in such a way that they seem to be concentrated in places with cheap labor, and developed countries, as we know, are increasingly investing in AI and automation with the aim of reducing production costs. How do you see that impacting the growth of the economies and the job market in Africa? Someone else here asks and says, profit usually is the ultimate motivator for most companies. Do you have any data or any information on how these approaches could impact or have impacted companies' earnings? And someone else says that these are very good concepts, but how do you think we can be able to translate them specifically to a place like Africa, where unemployment is very high and where you don't even have a job to talk about increasing your skills, especially in the area of formal employment? And somebody is asking, how do you conduct assessment for the 60-40 zone? So I think you can take care of those.
Let me take one question at a time. The first question is on this low-cost economies.
Yeah.
India was possibly where Africa is today about 20 years ago. A large number of the technology companies or the Fortune 500 companies came to India because of cost arbitrage. But let me tell you one thing, cost arbitrage will not provide you labor forever. You will have to have what is known as skill arbitrage or innovation arbitrage. Africa is at the stage where companies can come to exploit the low-cost labor. But if the people harness their skills, if the country, I was, for example, in Uganda twice, and I, even interacted with the First Lady. One of the things that I was sharing was that you need to revamp your education system. In addition to sharing the basic skills, in addition to teaching the basic skills, you need to leapfrog into some of the newer skills for which there is no barrier. AI, robotics, blockchain, and any of Industry 4.0 or IoT. The advantage that is there is you have a young economy. You can very comfortably learn, and you can double both of the skill arbitrage as well as the cost arbitrage. You can possibly start at the low end of the curve and then move up, and you comfortably can move up because age is to your advantage. Anybody who has got done anything will say that the younger the person is, the higher the learning agility, and Africa has got an advantage there. That's the first one. Now let us look at the second one, the unemployment. Well, let me tell you one thing. India was possibly in the same situation that Africa is. A large portion of the people were unemployed. Well, let me tell you, if you continue to focus on the skills that you have, you continue to be unemployed. On one side, there is unemployment. There is another side, there is a huge, and I would say huge, skill shortage. So one set of people are unemployed, another set of people are not even available. So I go back to 3 of the companies that I'm working for want of confidentiality. I can't give you the names of those companies. But let me tell you one thing. These companies, they retrenched about 5 to 12,000 people in each one of those companies. So 5 to 12,000 jobs were made redundant. Those same companies have got anywhere between 8 to 12,000 open positions in other skill areas, in other functional areas, in other business areas and domain areas. The message that I'm trying to say is, if you are focusing on a particular skill, there definitely will be unemployment. The focus for Africa should not look at job creation, but the focus of Africa should be on skill creation. Now, many of you believe in the Bible, and I want to give you a promise from the Bible. And that promise is this, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 29. What does it say? It says, do you find a person skilled in his work or her work? He or she will serve before kings and not before obscure men. My dear brothers and sisters, my dear friends in Africa, don't focus on job creation. Focus on skill creation. Because when you have the right skill, you will have enough entrepreneurial talent to create jobs yourself. Because companies, the Chinese companies who are coming, will come to reap only the bottom end of the pyramid. But you will be able to provide skills, and taking advantage of the global platform, a person sitting in Ghana, a person sitting in Kenya, a person sitting in Congo, a person sitting in Congo or Uganda can provide skills and can provide or work for a company in US or in Australia, taking advantage of the location, taking advantage of the technology. Bottom line, harness the skills. The job will come to you. The job will come after you, because now we have a situation where we are tailoring the jobs to fit the people, rather than the other thing where a person had to reskill himself or retrain himself for a particular static position, that of a finance manager, of a project manager, or so on. Nowadays, we have got what we call hybrid work environment. Our own daughter, for example, I mean, she was trained in one particular area. She's doing work in another area. She was not even trained in the area of marketing communications or employee communications. But a particular position was available. She just fitted it. Key is the title of my topic. Harness the skills. Let the skills be there. So the answer for Africa is not in providing jobs, not in providing employment, but focus on employability. Once you harness your skills, you are increasing your employability. And once you increase your employability, that will take care of your unemployment. It's a long answer to a short question, but that is right where you need the solution.
I think you just nailed it there, because I can tell you that Anand, as a person who's been running businesses for the last decade plus, we realized, especially in Uganda, and you did talk about being here in our education system, that there were serious challenges with employing people based on what academic qualifications they have, where someone comes into an interview room with a master's degree and it's a first class, and then you interview them on the skill set for the job that they're applying for, and they basically don't seem to have any idea as to what they're supposed to be doing. And so you find that a lot of companies, and I think Elon Musk has touched on this as well, he doesn't look at academic qualifications anymore. It's about your competence as a person and what skills that you have. And I also like to share my own example. I studied computer science at the university, but I've never really had a chance to practice that because I always wanted to be in the media and in marketing and communications, and which is where I ended up shining because I loved it. We talked about being comfortable, and it's something that I've always found comfortable. So I learned how to do that and ended up being able to do it well. Anand, Sam has a question for you, and he says that he's asking about the part you talked about organizations suffering at the cost of training employees because many companies usually are scared that you're going to give skills to employees and try and give them this sort of training only for them to leave you for other companies or greener pastures. Is that something that becomes a problem to tackle? Is it a thing of looking at the
That is a short-term problem. If you take, some of the leading companies, they actually have a very different philosophy. And that philosophy is train your employee good enough and well enough so that he or she wants to leave. Listen to me carefully. Train your employee good enough or well enough so that he or she wants to leave. But treat that employee well enough and good enough that the person will not want to leave. So you need to make sure that you couple training with the proper work environment. It will be foolish for you to train your employees without creating a culture. And that's the reason why you need to have the proper culture. So the two of them go hand in hand. And I can tell you one thing, in the last 40 years of my career, I have worked for 5 large corporations, but I've handled a variety of jobs. So when you switch, for example, my last corporate role with HCL Technologies, I spent close to 14 years in that organization, not in the same job. I had a variety of jobs. So we need to train our people well enough that they may want to be poached or attracted by somebody. But the culture of the organization should be so good that they want to retain and reinvest their skills back. But having said that, there will be a certain percentage of people who may want to leave. That's okay. That is the flip side of this whole training business. But in reality, what will happen is, these employees, after some time, having tasted your culture for some time, they go to another organization or another country and they say, no, it's not working out. They may want to come back. In a large number of organizations, whether it is Coca-Cola or Prudential or Hewitt or Whirlpool, all these organizations have got what is known as an employee rehire program, an employee alumni pool. So you can bring back these employees at a later point in time. Don't let that deter you letting your employees harnessing the skills. Let the employees harness their skills. Whether they want to leave or not is a secondary aspect. But you need to let employees harness their skills. And if Africa as a country focuses on this objective, the entire employability will go up. And more than anything, the GDP will go up because there is a higher skill component. You take the case of India. You know, in a large number of the places where the IT organizations are there, you can change your job without changing your parking lot. But that is only the beginning of the curve. So you have a Cisco or you have a Genpact or you have a Intel, all neighboring each other. In fact, next to the fence of one of these companies, there was a beautiful sign that was put up many years ago. And you know what that sign was? Trespassers beware, you will be recruited. But let me tell you one thing, nobody wanted to trespass. Why? Because they said, my company treats me so well. Yes, they have trained me. Yes, but I have got accustomed to my company's culture. I've got accustomed to my company's ways of working. I've acquired a particular skill which somebody is thinking is in demand, but I want to reinvest it back in my own company, in my own country. Africa will move up the value chain once you couple harnessing skills with the right work environment.
Wow, you're touching a lot of nerves here. You've got a lot of people on the call today who are budding entrepreneurs, and I'm sure that listening to you going about this, I think they have a lot of comfort, especially knowing that you should be able to. And I'll quote you here. train your employee well enough that they want to leave, but treat them well enough that they won't want to leave. I think that's a very, very big takeaway. Someone else here for you is saying this from Augustine. He says that the big thing that he has heard from you today is about the fact that the purpose of learning is growth, and our minds, unlike our bodies, can continue to grow as we continue to live, and talking about skills creation and jobs creation. And the question here is for you, Anand. If you've already raised the issues that we have with our education system in many countries in Africa, but I'll speak specifically about Uganda, and the fact that our curriculum does not center too much on training the sort of skills that you're talking about, the ones that we need for 2025, for example. What would you say are the top 2 or 3 key things that a person needs to be able to do to sort of help teach themselves and get these skills on their own? Do they go back to school? Do they read? What would be the key things you want them to be able to do to pick these skills?
Yeah, first thing is almost all the skills are going virtual, and COVID has really enabled you to do that. So take advantage of what is known as MOOCs, massively online open courses. The moment you shift your classroom-based teaching to online teaching, after some time, the student will move from one particular discipline into another discipline, what I call the 5A learning. Ben, listen to me carefully. What is the 5A learning? The 5A learning is any time, not just during school time, any time, anywhere, not just in the classroom. It could happen in the home. It could happen in the field, anywhere, anybody. In a school, there is an admission criteria. There is an age criteria. But on the internet, anybody can learn. Anywhere, anytime, anybody. The 4th discipline is any course. Now, you and I know a large number of the academic institutions have got what we call a prerequisite. For example, if you want to do a master's in chemical engineering, you will have to have done a bachelor's in chemical engineering. But online, if you want to do a particular course in Coursera, Udemy, there is no prerequisite. They do recommend a particular prerequisite so that you learn better. But if a person has got into chemical engineering and from there got into cell technology or computer science, no problem. Anytime, anywhere, anybody, any course. And most importantly, any mode. You can learn through the laptop. You can learn through the phone. You can learn through your tablet. You can learn through a kiosk. And I can tell you one thing, from whatever I have experience in Kenya, in Zambia, in Uganda, in Congo, in Nigeria, Africa has got a lot of smart devices. Learn to use them smartly. Learn to use your phone, the bite-sized learning. So let me give you the 5A learning. What is the 5A learning? Anytime. Don't worry about class time. It could be anytime, anywhere. We were restricted with classrooms. No problem. Anywhere you can learn. Anybody can learn any course in any device. You can learn on a TV. You can learn on a kiosk. You can learn on a phone. You can convert just about every smart device that you have at home into a learning platform. Anytime, anywhere, anybody, any program, and of course in any mode. That is the answer to Africa's explosion in education. Don't link education to teachers. Don't link education to classrooms. Don't link education to school hours. Anytime, anywhere, anybody, any course, and any more. Thank you.
No, thank you. Because again, like you point out, we are getting to a point where in Africa we have enough smart devices, and we also have internet costs that are coming down. They've been a bit high, but they're coming down. So internet is now quite readily accessible. I find that I always end up spending hours on end on YouTube and Quora. There's a website called Quora, which I find very fascinating because I end up learning so much about so many different things. These days I fix my own car because I've learned how to be a mechanic off of YouTube. So when I take the car to the garage, I'm just looking for manual labor to do what I want them to do, but I already know what I need them to fix. So I absolutely hear you. Frank here says that Uganda's new secondary curriculum does advocate for learning to take place according to the 5A model that you're sharing. However, he says that it seems to be saddening that most of the teachers are not willing to embrace it, I guess, because it puts them out of a job in a way. So that becomes an important thing. This is coming in from Subi, who says that we don't have any more excuses. I think you've laid us bare now. There's no running away from this, and we shouldn't link education to teachers anymore at all. And lots of questions about where we can get copies of this presentation. Again, as has been shared, the recording for this session is available online immediately after this on Facebook. You can find it there. On YouTube, you can find it there. You simply look for the hashtag Inspire Synergy 21 and you should be able to access this. And also, if you registered for the conference, you'll be able to get a copy of this in your email at some point. So, Betty, you're saying
I want to mention one thing.
Go ahead.
If people are happy, I'm more than happy to answer questions on Twitter. I'm very heavy on Twitter. Take down my Twitter handle and you can ask me questions anytime. Anand _Pillai. Ben, Anand _Pillai. That's my Twitter handle. All the participants of the conference can ask me this question anytime, in addition to watching the video on YouTube and whatever. And I'll be more than happy. I'm committed towards the development of Africa because I know what we have gone through. We're just about 20 years behind we were. And, I tell most of my American friends, you are ahead of us by 20 years. But now we will always be ahead of you. You know how? We will be ahead of you by at least 10 hours. And that's the time zone. Lighter side aside, Africa will be ahead of America, at least from a time zone point of view. And technology is an equalizer. Earlier, technology was a differentiator. Today, the technology that you have is the same technology that is available in China. It is the same technology that is available in other parts of Australia, New Zealand, America. Technology is an equalizer. Leverage it to the hilt, and I'll tell you, the world will just sit back and watch what Africa will do for the transformation. Having said that, you got something that none of us have. Everybody knows that Africa will be the food bowl of the world. We will come back to you. Don't worry. So, and you gave the quote of yesterday. Africa does not need the world needs Africa. As long as people have got a stomach, they will come to Africa because Africa is the food bowl. But having said that, people have got brains also. Don't let people come to you for their stomach and go somewhere else for their brains. There is a lot of talent that can be deployed in the aging economies. Africans are myopic today. They are looking for employment within Africa. The world is a stage. You harness the skills, you can be deployed in various parts of the world, initially virtually, and once you get talent mobility, you can go anywhere in the world. All the best.
No, thank you so much. That's absolutely amazing. Bridget here says that there is no bliss in ignorance indeed, and no excuse for not improving our employability at this point. And of course, you did mention, Professor Anand, the fact that India and Africa are sort of on the same level in terms of demographic for the population. And yet you can clearly see how far ahead of us India has gone in terms of skilling its people. A lot of the labor that's coming to you from Europe and the US, and definitely an opportunity for Africa to come there as well. Just a reminder for you, in case you want to follow Professor Anand, it is Anand _Pilai. That's at Twitter. Please note that there are very many Anand Pilais. I had a challenge trying to find you, Prof, because there are so many different Anand Pilais. What helped me was a picture of you, because I knew what you looked like. So it made it much easier to find you. So when you do go, remember, it is at Anand _Pilai, and you'll find a picture of Professor Anand. The person who looks most like a professor with any of those names. You shouldn't miss that. But thank you so much. David Oya, if you're saying technology is an equalizer, Africa can leverage it. And that's absolutely true, because even right now, you've got many companies. I have maybe about 4 or 5 friends who live in Uganda but work in the US. They're working computer programmers and coders who earn quite a decent living by working for companies in the US, which is what India has been able to harness very well in the last 15, 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. And so there's opportunity for us there, no doubt, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
for
you can
technology,
catch up. You don't need another 15 years to catch up.
yeah,
You possibly need 15 months.
yeah.
You can fast track very, very well. And that's the beauty of technology. You can leave the first 4 generations and get straight into the 5th generation.
And I'm going to end the session with something that you said at the end. I mean, there's been so many quotable quotes here, but I think the one that you finished with is the one that has really struck a nerve for me. As far as people have stomachs, they will come to Africa, but let's not let them come to us with their stomachs and go elsewhere for the brains. Let's get their stomachs and use that opportunity to give them our brains as well. Professor Anand Pilai, as always, like I said at the beginning, it's always an absolute delight listening to you because you're just simply amazing. And we thank you for being a part of Inspire 2021. Thank you, and thank you, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.